Hi everyone and welcome to Reed's Reads Spider-Man Crawl Space Edition. Check us out at the SpiderManCrawlspace.com. Well everybody, welcome for our more wider screen editions here as we kick on the usual Reed's Reads amazing Spider-Man reviews for the Crawl Space. So here it is everybody, the big, the amazing, the hugely oversized, amazing Spider-Man 900, aka issue 6 of the current number. Will we finally get all the answers of what Peter did, why him and Mary Jane are not together, what was it that was so crazy to do? Well guys, here's the biggest spoiler I'm going to tell you. Nothing's going to actually answer those questions here. Instead, we're going to talk about exactly what is the whole 900 Amazing Spider-Man issue is actually about after 60 years of Spider-Man, dealing with a very long forgotten villain and the fact that it actually copyrights some interesting information from Dan Jurgens' Captain America run. So let's get right into the pros. First of all, I actually really enjoy Ed McGuinness's work on here. Him being the artist for this issue is actually extremely nice. One thing I've always loved about his work since his days on Deadpool, but he really gets the characters, and Ed definitely shows how much he's a very traditional Marvel artist, even though it's traditionally has changed over the years as him in art. It's hard to believe that that run on Deadpool with Joe Kelly was almost 30 years ago. But the fact is, it really does really well. He gets the characterizations, the humor, the pieces, the action scenes, especially the battle between Spider-Man and the Sinister Adaptoid, very well done. And I do like some of the pieces with Dr. Octopus's tentacle hardness and how it's actually technically in love with Peter, even though it's kind of gotten a mind of its own. It's really an interesting little run, too. I also like some of the fact that we get some more, especially with Jameson knowing that Peter is Spider-Man as well as Flash and Felicia, so they actually work with the storyline pretty well about everything going on with the Living Brain, who of course I should call this is the Living Brain 2.0, since actually it's the evolved version of the villain. And the truth is, a lot of the clues were there of who it was. Believe it or not, some people say, hey Ryan, I heard you figured out who the villain was. Well, I thought it was actually the Ringmaster, because it made plenty of sense considering the storylines, the pieces why I see him making a big show of all things that would fall under a character like him, but boy, was I wrong. So wasn't it great that we got the Living Brain 2.0 trying to answer the question from way back in the 60s, who is Spider-Man? The fact he keeps asking that question, but that drags it. It's an interesting factor. You're trying to get the information. Since this is a living computer, it's really just trying to solve an answer it's never been able to solve. And the fact is how the Living Brain gets his answer, how he uses the Sinister Six, and a few other things actually do work pretty well. However, it's a pretty lame storyline. So let's just go right to the cons of this storyline, guys. This is an anniversary with a 2-page introduction back in issue 1 from a few months ago. And this is what we get. It's very lame. I'm sorry, it is. We've already done this storyline. As I talked about it, Dan Jurgens, when he was writing Captain America, did this with Cash, who was actually, as he said at a couple conventions back then, Cash was based off of the Living Brain would have been made in the early 21st century about how all of the information, internet, which is all this is. So in a way, it's a copy of that forgotten Captain America villain, which was a living computer program that was given its own body thanks to the program at AIM, and it just wanted to know all the information. That's what this new Living Brain is, though he does some very sinister things like killing his creator for input, as well as members of the ICM and other members of the building construction crew, all just to find out the classic question, why do I exist? What's the point of I exist? Well, I do like the fact that it does the pieces of how he is defeated, with him actually understanding he finally gets who Spider-Man is in general. Putting himself things, even if the villains are going to tear him apart like the Sinister Six does, which is a very humorous way the Sinister Adaptoid gets destroyed, since all the personalities which led to their defeat in the original annual back in the 60s leads it to things. So I actually will give huge credit to Zeb Wells for doing that and actually having a very creative way to defeat him. And the jokes work very well too, though I think the whole Dr. Octopus's harnesses AI getting to be in love with Peter and jealous of Black Cat is really weird. And speaking of supporting cast members, oh man, we've been hit over the head about how Peter and Spider-Man are in the outs with everybody, the Heroes of New York to his pieces. And it looks more like, really, they're just say, hey, you kind of flaked on us for a couple of months, and you were just doing this, and hey, you've been getting some money. At least they explain that from doing some stuff with Nora Winters as well as the Daily Bugle. So henceforth, they get a little bit constant pay, which is paying his rent. So at least they answer that question, but the supporting cast really isn't mad at Peter. They kind of think of it. But of course, Zeb also falls on some old trikes, like the fact that Flash Thompson calls, loser Parker still doing this, when Flash has grown hugely past all that, even with the memory loss and brain damage and becoming anti-Venom. that part was hugely lost on the character. So to see that, it is really a huge step backwards. And some of the other things going, the fact that Bobby Chase is there, we kind of wanted to forget about that storyline from way back, Dan Slots, but here's Bobby. Oh, did you see how they were just holding and talking to each other? Oh, Mockingbird and Spider-Man, what a match made in heaven. Really? I don't think so. For a one and done storyline would sell very little stuff. The characterization of the Sinister Six from the current Kraven, the Dr. Octopus, the Mysterio, the Vulture, and I know the Vulture is going to play a role in the next Spider-Man storyline with the Spider Goblin suit, but it's really not much of a story. In fact, it's not only lame, even though it's got a great concept, but it steals a storyline from 20 years ago from another writer, who wrote The Death of Superman, who's getting ready for the anniversary, and a few other things. For an anniversary issue, it doesn't really answer any questions. It's kind of a very lame issue. I'm actually going to give it a C-. One thing that saves is the artwork, the jokes, and the fact that how the Sinister Six is portrayed is actually very well done and what's going to lead to the other storyline. So at least that's all done. But what did I think about the other three stories? Dude, I took my notes so I didn't look like an idiot. So let's talk about Daniel Kibbleson's along with David Lopez. Remember old David. We love David's work with the Librarian storyline. Hey, libraries are cool. And in fact, I love libraries. In fact, libraries are getting hit hard. But the fact is, this is a storyline of basically, Spider-Man returning a late overdue book and all the talk about everything. And to get his charges forgiven is to have Spider-Man come in reading day. Yeah, I don't know what century that, David is living in, but now this tape's time when a book has been that long overdue, usually you have to buy for a new copy. And if Peter actually has some royalties left over from, Nora Winters and the Daily Bugle, I think he could buy a new book instead of doing it. It's meant to make a librarian look like a stickler for things and so forth, and to show, libraries really do matter, reading matters, and it's horrible that libraries have become such a political focus in the last several years, or becoming more obsolete and had it evolved due to the internet and other issues. But outside the beautiful artwork by David Lopez, this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek issue, or I should say story, it's in one issue, that's very forgettable. It's okay, but it's nothing I haven't seen. But in fact, Married with Children made the same joke about almost 35 years ago. So I'll give that a C, because I love libraries and I love David Lopez. What about, our buddy Jeff Loveness along with our buddy Todd Nack? And I love Todd Nack. So the storyline actually is a lot of fun doing with Jimmy Kimball. It does feel a little bit reminiscent of the Barack Obama storyline from 2009, but at the same time it's basically just meant as a concept. Why the characterization is good with Mysterio and what the storyline is working with Jimmy Kimball and the fact that Spider-Man kind of gets had at the end with Jimmy, it feels like Loveless basically was just trying to do a skit with without the special effects and paying out the money for people to make this happen. I love Jimmy Fallon too. And it's a funny storyline and I love Todd's work in it. It's good, but I'm just going to give it a B. It's kind of a forgotten story. It's kind of an off-shot, kind of publicity piece for Loveness, but it's not much of anything else. But I'll give it a B because it is pretty funny, and I love Mysterio. So what about Dan Slott and Marcos Martin? See, I didn't need my notes for that one's little story, late. Peter is a loser. Peter can't have a date. Peter is going to actually give his corsage to his Aunt May thinking about thing, and his friends are going to think that's who he's taking to the dance, and Aunt May says, don't worry, you'll find a good girl thing. With this beautiful 2-page spread of Marcus's issue with the Green Goblin battle, being late because of 9 o'clock, and messed out with Betty. Whatever, man. Artwork great, but boy, gotta do that. Peter's a loser, just like Zeb Wells had to throw it with Flash's throwaway line in the main story. I'll give that one a D, because really, it's forgettable, and really, that's what we want to have with the new upcoming Spider-Man spinoff with Dan Slott and Mark Bagley. Ugh. Waste of time, guys. Issue 900. 800 wasn't the best, but at least 800 served its purpose. 700 made plenty of sense since that led to Superior. 600 led to the Superior with everything happening with Aunt May and, Jameson Sr.'s wedding and everything with Dr. Octopus's health issues. And 500 was a fantastic issue actually talking about all the years and decades of Spider-Man and how he perseveres through. But issue 900 is sad. I'm sorry, it's very sad. The main story gets a C-. I'm giving a C to the library issue because of the artwork and the fact that I love libraries. I'm giving a B because it's actually a funny story with the Jimmy Fallon story, but the other Dan Slott and Marcos' story is a solid D. The only thing is, I get it, it's that part of the back in the day, but since so many people are so in love with the high school Peter Parker loser, yeah, I don't like it. So all together, if I put in my calculations, using my doctorate for Effings and Pieces and calculating all those formulas, issue 800 comes to a solid C. Yes, that's right, a C. I popped it up a little bit with a grave curve and everything, but that D brought it back down. So issue 900 is officially a C. If you're completist or wondering how this is good, but I'm pretty sure some Spider-Man fans will probably think this is the end for them for a while until the trade of changes. But not me, guys. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm going to stick on here for the Norman Osborn storyline, of course, the Judgment Day, and of course, the Dark Web. The web is coming. The Goblin Queen, All Hallows Eve, they're coming. They're coming. Tune in more, right? Anyhow, I'm done, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting the family wondering my weird sounds coming from my green screen basement area. So, guys, that's all I have to say here. So, I'll talk to more people later. If you like to talk to me, please reach out to the Spider-Man Crawl Space. Definitely leave a message. Talk to our social media or Discord here, and we'll do more. And, of course, definitely check out our podcasts and other wonderful, amazing, including Spider History with our buddy JR and some other ones. And for more, guys, check us out at SpidermanCrawlspace.com. And I will see everybody later as we get ready to head towards the dark web.